Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar. My name is Augustus Melu, a Business Relationship Manager here at Unicom Seminars. We're pleased to be hosting a webinar titled All About the Agile Release Train, It's Safe. The webinar will be presented by Kashif Hussain and Simon Norrington, both senior technical consultants at HP Software specializing in the application delivery space. At this point, I would like to hand over to Kashif.
Cool. So the agenda that we're going to go through today, I'll just click onto the next slide. Okay, so this is the basic agenda we're going to have. We're going to first of all talk about how HP has aligned itself to the Scaled Agile framework. We'll then go into a demo of our Agile solution, Agile Manager, and how you can manage Agile projects within there. Talk a little bit about continuous testing, continuous delivery, so how that can help with the release train and such. And finally, we'll wrap up with a case study from one of our customers in the States called Trisetto, a large healthcare company, and how they've used HP's kind of tool set to also align themselves to the Scaled Agile framework. Okay, so to start with, I'm going to use an analogy here of Dubai, really, and you can see here is the Burj Al Khalifa, and very much take that as a line of business. So it's a big, large project, innovative project that they implemented there, and that was, of course, part of a larger program for regeneration. So, you know, as part of that program, you had to kind of build all the infrastructure around it, the gardens, hotels, all the other buildings as well. That all had to be managed together. And that all tied into the digital vision as such. So Dubai's kind of vision of having a tourist hub, property, finance as well. So all those kind of things tied together all the way from the kind of line of business through the program to that kind of digital landscape as such. And each of these areas kind of brought in their kind of own specialties. So again, when we speak to most customers, we ask them, like, you know, where is your innovation coming from? And often they'll say it comes from that kind of lower level, at the team level or from the lines of business. However, what we're also finding is that marketing and IT are becoming much more aligned to each other and coordinated. You know, you're seeing companies now having CDOs instead of CIOs and having big digital programs as such. In the last 10, 15 years, IT is and application development has been very much about efficiency, having a factory process in place. But now it's all about innovation. You know, the next 10 years, we're going to see companies really drive innovation in their applications. And we see that with mobile already. You know, if you talk to certain customers, a big supermarket chain recently, they were saying that 90% of their kind of online orders now come from mobile rather than just kind of the normal website. There's a big coffee company in the States as well, who also use their mobile app so you can, you know, buy and order your coffees before you even reach, you know, the kind of shop, so it's there for you in the morning as such. So, you know, got a lot of these using mobile and the Internet of Things to drive this kind of innovation, but it needs to tie back into your company and business's kind of objectives as such. And that's where the Scaled Agile framework really helps this. So it allows you to develop on Kanban, develop apps on demand as such, working those agile teams, but also allows the kind of the business and the kind of program and portfolio level a certain amount of control, especially around the schedule of releases too. So this was a framework put together by someone called Dean Leffingwell. If you go to Google Scaled Agile Framework, you'll be able to go to its website, and it gives you kind of a breakdown into all these kind of different elements within there. It's quite a popular framework at the moment. There are other frameworks around, but for ourselves, we've very much aligned ourselves to this one. That doesn't mean things like DAD or LESS or, you know, we're ignoring those. They also work quite well with our particular tool set as well. So how have we aligned ourselves to this? Well, we're using two main products. Now, one of them you're probably familiar with, ALM, so also known as Quality Center. So within Quality Center, it's been, you know, it's a well-known test management tool. Most of our customers use it as a central repository for their automation, performance, also the security and manual tests as well. And then we've got a fairly recent product called Agile Manager, so AGM also known as. And within this is very much geared towards Scrum and Kanban teams. So you can do both Scrum, Kanban within there as well. And then you can synchronize the two up. Now, the reason you want to synchronize the two up is because you still want to use ALM as your main testing hub. Okay, so you have your user stories within Agile Manager, and then you link those to within tests and system tests, automated tests, manual tests within ALM. As you execute those tests within ALM, that information is then linked back into Agile Manager as well. So there's a connection as such. And again, ALM works very well at the program level, where you can run your kind of larger system tests, your regression packs, your performance tests on there as well, to ensure that what the developers are developing is fit for purpose. Okay, so now we'll kind of go into Agile Manager. So what you see here, first of all, is a product backlog. And again, this backlog can be synchronized up with with ALM, and we've broken down into 3 areas. So themes, very much your kind of portfolio epics, your vision as such, and then that's broken down into features. So again, your program level epics, and finally that's then the backlog, so where all your user stories and your defects exist. And Simon will give you a demo of this shortly. Now, one of the key metrics that we use in SAFe is weightest shortest job first, and this is really an economic decision framework. What that means, it's an intelligent way or a calculated way of putting a priority list together. So we look at the cost of delay. What's the impact if we don't deliver this particular feature, by taking in the business value, time criticality and risk as well, and then divided by the actual job size. So you can customize this particular element within Agile Manager, and then give a weighting to each particular feature. So you can ensure that, okay, I need to make sure that this search facility is quite key in our application. We need to get that in first. So you start putting that earlier in the release, so it's available, maybe in the first release as such. Now, as I mentioned, Simon's going to give you a quick demo of Agile Manager, just to give you a quick flow of what it will go through. So first of all, he'll set up a user story and then put it into a particular release. Once he's added it to the release backlog, he'll assign it to a team within a sprint. He'll then be broken down into a number of tasks and kind of worked on within that particular sprint. And finally, he'll also show you then the dashboards that are available within Agile Manager as well. Okay, and now I'll hand over for the demo to Simon Norrington. Okay, over to you, Simon.
Okay, thank you, Cash. So let's have a look at Agile Manager, and what we're seeing here is the product backlog within Agile Manager. The product backlog allows the product owner to focus on what matters to the business whilst understanding the complete impact of any changes. And as Cash mentioned earlier, the product backlog is broken down into a hierarchy of 3 things. The first one is the themes, and as mentioned before, themes can span multiple releases. They represent major areas in the application under development, and themes can be broken down into features. So here we've got the features, and features are the next level down, as I said, and Cash mentioned the Scaled Agile framework and the weighted shortest job first. You can see we can actually have that filter in our view of the features, so we can actually manage our features using the Scaled Agile framework metrics. And then finally, what we have in the product backlog is backlog items, and we'll just go over to those. Okay. Right. Yeah, we're going to go over to the backlog items, and as Cash said, backlog items, these are typically the user story level and what we assign to a specific release. And within Agile Manager, backlog items can also include defects. All the views that you've seen in the product backlog have a filter, so in this case I'm now going to filter our backlog items by new, in progress and in testing, and we can see what's in the backlog. At the bottom of the screen you can see a summary, and this shows the number of user stories within the backlog, the number of defects, the number of story points, and we can see the percentage of our backlog items that haven't been estimated by the team yet. On the right-hand side of the screen, we have the release information, and here we can see associated information with the release, such as the date of the release, the number of user stories, and the number of defects. And if I click on the link here for remaining work, we can actually look at the release capacity for the release. So we can look at the sprints, see how the velocity is changing from different sprints, and we can also look at the velocity amongst the different teams that are working on this release. Going back to the bar on the right-hand side, the colors represent different types of information. So blue, for example, is the total amount of work in this particular release. Green is the completed work, and should we have any red on here, it would mean we were oversubscribed and over-allocated. So let's create a new item and add it to the backlog. Okay, so we start up a wizard and we can see the different types of items available. So as mentioned before, defect is a type of backlog item, so we can create a defect straight here, but we're going to go with the default of a user story. So we've created a template, and the template comes in useful later on as part of Agile Manager. Cash mentioned the tasks. The tasks are also created as part of the template, so it saves a little bit of rework later on. Now the hardest part of this is I've got to think of a name for my user story. Okay, so we're talking about mobile, so I'm going to keep it in the mobile application aspect of our release. I'm going to pick a feature. I will then assign a priority. I'm going to keep the release and teams empty at the moment, and I'm going to add some story points. Okay, so my new backlog item has been added to the release to the backlog list. And I'm going to change the ranking of it from being last to being first, so it makes it easier for me to find. Okay, so from all these items in the backlog, we now begin planning what's going to be in the release. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to drag and drop our newly created backlog item into our release. And you can see it's successfully being added to our release. So now I'm going to look at the sprint planning. So this takes us into the release backlog, and the release backlog is where you can identify which stories a sprint should contain and ascertain which teams have the capacity to deliver them. And as you can see, it contains all the items we're targeting for delivery in this particular release. Up in the top right-hand corner, there is a quick reference summary of the defect status of this particular release and a summary view of the user story progress. So you can see the number of defects that have been created and their current status. Along the right-hand side, you can see the sprints and the associated teams, and we can move between sprints using the arrows on the right-hand side. Okay, so let's add our newly created backlog item to a team. So in this case, it's going to be Team Orange. So let's have a look at the sprint backlog. Okay, so the sprint backlog contains all the items we are targeting for this particular sprint and the specified team. Along the top, we can use the arrows to move between different sprints and teams, and on the right-hand side, we can see the team members and their current capacity. So like before, let's drag our user story over to a team member. In this case, I'm picking on Alice because she has no tasks assigned to her yet. And you will see the backlog item has now been assigned to Alice, and there are 3 tasks associated with that backlog item due to the template we used. Okay, so I've now completed the release and sprint planning, so it's time to begin executing. So let's go and have a look at the execution of the sprint within Agile Manager. And to do that, we go to the task board. So the task board enables a team to self-organize by allowing them to look at item allocation, breaking the stories into tasks, tracking development, and defining done. We can also look at retrospectives later on. So the task board is invaluable for managing tasks on a day-to-day basis. On the far left, you can see the user story, and across the row, you can see the associated tasks and their statuses. So what I'm going to do now is go into a bit of detail for the backlog item. And as part of the template we use to create the backlog item, it also creates an acceptance test. In this case, we have a peer review test that needs to be carried out as part of testing this backlog item. So that's one of the benefits of using a template in Agile Manager. So what we're going to do now is drag these tasks over into the in progress column. And as we do this, you'll see the in the top right hand corner, the backlog status and task summary will change to reflect how the tasks are being worked on. So what we're going to do next is we're going to drag the 3 tasks over into the completed status column. As I finish this, I will then get a prompt asking me if I would like to change the status of the story. And you'll see that we're starting to get some green on our task summary. Okay, so there's the warning. Do I want to accept the backlog item as being completed? I'm going to click Save to say yes. I will then get a further warning to say we haven't actually carried out the acceptance test. And what I can do here is to say, well, actually, we're going to pass it anyway, so set to done. So that's my backlog item being worked on and tested. So the next step of our work is to go and look at retrospectives. And Agile Manager has a facility within it to do this, and it's the Sprint Closure tab. So the Sprint Closure allows us to look at different retrospective capabilities, and customers really like this. So for example, I can see straight away that we have the completion done status. I can move incomplete items and tasks to the next sprint, and I can also help teams to capture what went well and what didn't go well. So we've got some metrics across the top: the number of user stories completed, number of defects resolved, number of defects detected, and the time and the number of times the build actually broke. Okay, so we can also capture things that went well and things that didn't go well. So you'll see that I've got 2 text boxes beneath. So what I'm going to do is go into things to improve for the next sprint. So I'm going to just type in something here. And as a mobile tester, this is something that's quite personal to me. So once I finish typing this, I'm going to click on the Convert to One Action Items button at the bottom. And what this will do is it will create an action item that will be saved in the next sprint. So I click Save there. So we're currently in Sprint 8, so what I'll do in a sec is go and have a look at Sprint 9. And from there you will see that I've got the action item that I just created. So let's jump back to the sprint we're currently in, Sprint 8. The other thing Agile Manager allows you to do is if there are any outstanding actions that haven't been completed as part of this sprint, is we can actually push them into the next sprint. So for example, there are 6 actions here that haven't been completed. I could select one of these and push it into the next sprint. So we'll just close that. And then the next aspect of Agile Manager that I want to show you is around defect management. So although you can see defects as part of the product backlog, defects have their own backlog as well. So for example, here we're looking at all the Severity 1 critical defects that are currently registered in Agile Manager. So Agile Manager has built-in defect management. So the last thing I really want to show you is around the dashboard. So with Agile Manager, you can gain a 360-degree view and allow teams to precisely analyse risks and rapidly understand the full impact of any changes that take place. And we do this through dashboard widgets. So out of the box there's a total of 45 that you can have on your dashboard. And there's quite a comprehensive list, as you can see me scrolling through here. And we also have the ability to create custom graphs. So if there's something we've missed, you can create your own graph. And one of the features I really like about the dashboard in Agile Manager is you can have private and public dashboards. So you could have a team dashboard, for example, or in this particular case, we can have a dashboard set up showing metrics that pertain to a Scrum Master. So anything a Scrum Master would actually be interested in, we can have a dashboard set up for them. I'm just going to scroll down. The other thing we can do is look at how different teams are performing. So we looked at Team Orange, now we're in Team Blue. And we can go to Team Yellow. So we can actually compare how teams are performing as part of this particular sprint. And we can also look at historical information as well. So in this case I'm looking at Sprint 7 and how the yellow team performed. So just to show you a different role, let's have a look at a release manager and see what information they would see on their dashboard. Okay, different charts for a different role. Okay, so that was Agile Manager in a nutshell. Over to you, Cash.
Hi, thanks for that, Simon. So I hope you found that useful. So the next part I wanted to talk about is on development insights. Okay, and then continuous integrations. How we integrate Agile Manager into the development world. So what we can do is we can push down defects and tasks onto a developer's IDE. So if they're using things like Eclipse or IntelliJ or Visual Studio, okay, they will see the tasks that have been assigned to them in their actual IDE. What they can then do is change some code accordingly, commit that code and tag it to that particular user story or defect, and that gets then obviously saved within your source code repository. And we've got agents talking to your source code repository, whether it be Git or Subversion, and that information again is pulled into Agile Manager. Finally, once those code changes then go into the build, so you may have a CI tool such as Jenkins, Hudson, or Electric Commander, or again TFS, that again is connected to Agile Manager, and the build information is then shown within there as well. So by having all that information, you're able to pull in some really useful reports, like having a release overview and also build summary reports as well. So what I'm going to do is now again flip back into Agile Manager. Here we go, and show you those reports. So here you can see the release summary for a particular release, and you'll see all the various sprints within that release. Now because we're connected to Jenkins for this one, and Jenkins also will be running your unit tests, will be maybe connected to Covertura for code coverage as well. So all that information is also pulled in to Agile Manager as well. So you can see here code coverages, unit test success as well. It's really good. It's a bit of gamification. We're allowing developers to compete against each other to see, right, okay, who's been doing the most amount of code, who's been committing the most amount in here as well. So if I flick over to the build summary, so within here in the build information, this is really cool. So within each build that gets pushed up, so you may run overnight builds, for example, and within here you'll be able to see the defects and the user stories that were addressed in that particular build. So in here you've got the whole historical view. If I actually go into a particular build report, okay, I can see the user story that was delivered, the defect as well, okay, and you can see the amount of code that was changed for that particular user story or defect as well. So if I go back to this user story, and then when I drill down into this user story, okay, and I go to development activity, within here you can actually get more detail on the type of code, so where there was the code changes made, okay, and who was the developer for that particular task as well. So if anything goes wrong with it, you know who to go back to. You can get a bit more of an in-depth view if you go to the source code tab in here. And what's really good here is actually you can go and say, right, show me all unassigned changes. And that's quite key because what we sometimes find is sometimes business people, marketing, will come and speak directly to the developer, think, we want to get this new feature in there, right? And let's avoid all the processes. We just want to get it in there quickly. So they'll go straight to that person, say, can you go and do that? They'll put some new lines of code in to get a new, say, field, new box, or whatever, to be in there. However, that's not tracked. It's not linked to any particular feature that's been approved by the product manager. So you can't get rogue features within there. Okay, so I flick now back into my slide. So really just to summarize the development insights you can get from all those metrics in there, just some examples. Now if you have high success test but poor code coverage, it kind of implies that you're not really, the tests are not really representative of what's being coded in there. On the flip side, you might have high code changes but poor test, test success. So you're seeing a lot of code failure, code changes causing failures. Now I mentioned about unassigned code as well and ad hoc requests, so you can monitor that in Agile Manager as well. And finally, typically in a sprint, at the beginning of a sprint, you're going to see a lot more features, new things being added. Whereas towards the end of the sprint, you'll now see more defects being worked on. Not really the other way around. So you can monitor that as well in there. Right, so now we go on to continuous testing. So we've got the title of the Kingmaker. So what we're seeing is the CI tools are often dictating what automation tools you want to use as part of your release train as such at the program level. What we've done is we've integrated all our automation tools into Jenkins or Hudson. So if you have an overnight build, typically you can run all your unit tests, but you may want to run some functional and API tests as well, which you can now do with UFT. So you can connect that directly into Jenkins. You can also trigger off performance tests as well. So if you want to run load runner tests, you can do that on your new build. With service virtualization, you can create intelligent stubs, so have virtualized kind of environments, so you don't actually have to then hit real-life systems or systems that haven't yet been built. And finally, if you're using Storm Runner, so this is our SaaS performance testing tool, you can also trigger off load tests from there as well. And all that information, all the results are then of course shown within ALM as well, which is then connected back to Agile Manager. So there's a full kind of flow of information there. Now that's great. However, one of the biggest problems you find is environments. And as Gene Kim's mentioned here, who's kind of the author of the Phoenix project, environment setup is one of the biggest constraints here. So how can we help there? And this is our kind of new DevOps offering as such, and it's called Codar. So with Codar, again, it's linked to Jenkins, so as soon as you run a build, it will kind of provision an environment for you. And within Codar, you can specify the topology of that environment. So all the way from your OS, your DB, what application server you want, web server, and then the application as well on there. And you can set up a dev environment, and then if you want, you can have it consistent all the way through. So you can set up a dev environment, run your tests on that dev environment. If it's passed, you tear it down. It goes on and creates your QA environment and does the same again. And then you say your performance environment all the way up to kind of pre-prod. And if you're brave enough, you can go all the way into production. So if you want to have this system in place, like an Amazon, where you click a button or you commit the code, and boom, 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 it goes straight all the way into production. You can do that as well. Or typically, you may want to have it, packaged formally up all the way up until pre-prod, and then release it all together in a more formal release as such. Now the last section here, we're going to run a short video from one of our customers who's implemented Scaled Agile framework using our tools. What they did here, they were an old user of ALM. They had a lot of testing assets within there. They connect it to a number of automation tools, HP tools as well as non-HP tools as well. But they wanted to then also move into a bit more of the kind of agile way of releasing. So they looked at Agile Manager, connected to ALM. They've also connected ALM and AGM to their development environment. So you can see there using ALI, which is what we call the connectors as such, to TFS. They were a big .NET shop, as well as the kind of they had some Java projects as well. So they were able to connect it to both kind of development work. So now I'm going to hand you over to the video, which is done by Rubina Ansari, who is the Associate VP there at Trisetto.
Hi, my name is Rubina Ansari, and I work with Trisetto, Associate Vice President of Automation and SDLC Tools. We touch over 50% of the American insured population's claims goes through our software. So we have a very big market right now in the claims processing, but we do a lot more than that. We are a provider for so many areas of healthcare technologies. We have over 5 major development centers, approximately 1,000 folks in our development teams. So there's a lot of people, a lot of testers, a lot of developers, and all of us having to work together in order to deliver our software in a very timely manner with quality. Not only do we sell products, but we sell solutions. So we have to make sure when we release our products that not only do they work alone together, but they work well seamlessly together as a solution. The market expects us to respond much faster and release much faster. And we've been doing a lot of waterfall and structured iterative. We wanted to evolve to agile development, which will allow us to respond much faster to our customers with precision and with quality, and we knew the way we had to do that was to change our methodology of development. So we're right now in the midst of evolving from structured iterative and waterfall to scaled agile. We wanted to make sure whichever tool we're going to go with would have to, number one, support our scale agile processes, as well as not prohibit our ability to have traceability and integrations with the other tools we have within house. The fact that HP Agile Manager is also an agile methodology, we're able to get quick responses from HP on issues as well as enhancements that Trisetto would need with HP Agile Manager. HP Agile Manager offered us the ability to have a SaaS-based tool that would allow our testers and our developers and our business analysts to work all in a single tool, collaborate better, and have a lean, faster development methodology. The vision for the future is to make sure that tools never hinder our ability to release products and to continue having seamless integrations and continue building efficiency everywhere we can in our development cycle so we can respond to the market as fast as we could. And that's our vision. So we have other HP products. My vision is to integrate all of them. And at a point of when a customer needs something, we're able to respond very quickly on not only what they want, but as well as if there is an issue, we can trace it all the way down to the requirement at a moment's notice, all automatically.
I hope you found that useful. So just for the last point, we're actually running a DevOps roadshow on the 24th of June in London. We're going to have Kurt Bittner there from Forrester as well. Please, you can follow the link there at the bottom. We'll send that all out as part of the presentation as well, so you can register for that. And now, that's it really, and now we'll hand over to questions. Thank you very much.
Okay. Right, Cash, I'm only seeing one question so far. Question is, Agile Manager looks very similar to Storm Runner. Is it a SaaS-only product?
So initially it was a SaaS product. The reason being is we actually practice what we preach in. Agile Manager is developed in an agile way. And really when it came out, obviously, it came out as a 1.0 and it did a lot of features. We were getting a lot of feedback from our customers and people who were doing betas and telling us, we want these new features, we want this please in there as well. So we were releasing new versions of it every month. So we kept it on SaaS for about a year just so we could get it, and update it as quick as possible. So, however, there was also a demand to have it on-premise. A lot of our customers asked, look, can we have it on-premise as well? So last year we made it available on-premise as well. So it's available on SaaS or on-premise. What I would say is, again, The release cycle on SaaS is monthly, new features updated quite regularly. On-premise, you would have to manage those updates yourself. So, if you want to stay nimble, it's probably better to keep it on SaaS. And it's very easy to procure on there as well. You can go onto the website and you can provision an environment for 30 days on there, trial environment, and after that, you can just simply pay by credit card to go on there. I mean, the going rate on there is $39 per user per month.
Okay, I think you've just answered the second question as well, which was, is there a way of getting a trial version of this?
Yeah. So you can go on there quite easily, or if you speak to one of your HP kind of account managers, we can provision one as well. Now, one of the promotions we're running at the moment is if you move your Quality Center or ALM instance to SaaS, you would be entitled to 20 free Agile Manager licenses as well.
Okay.
And we would also manage the synchronization as well on there between the two products.
All right. Well, I think that's all the questions that I can currently see.
Okay, so if nobody has any more questions, Gus, I'll hand it back over to yourself.
That concludes the question and answer session. We would like to thank Kashif and Simon for a brilliant presentation and sharing their insight. Thank you everyone for joining today's webinar. We'll make the recording available afterwards and we'll send you the link. We look forward to your future participation at one of our events. Thank you.